Welcome back for the anticipated return of Liberty is Peachy, presented by the ACLU of Georgia. In the time since our last episode, the staff here at ACLU-GA has been hard at work defending the civil liberties and civil rights of all Georgians during the public health crisis impacting millions and the rising movements to power. Our sacred right to vote has been under attack from many angles as we continue to endure the coronavirus pandemic, and a shortage of volunteers to work at the polls, who historically have been those individuals most susceptible to the virus. This issue presented itself as a big problem in the June 9th primary, accompanied by long lines and lengthy wait times that all contributed to spell Election Day disarray. The ACLU of Georgia developed a poll worker program to tackle the poll worker shortage head-on and proactively ensure fair elections into the August 11th runoff and beyond onto the November general election. Here to recount their experience as poll workers in the August 11th runoff, a crucial role in ensuring the safety and fairness of some of the most important elections in our nation's history, are James Hammond and Louis Bates Jr., two members of the Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. Well, first off, I just wanted to thank you both for your time and dedication. The ACLU of Georgia is empowered and impactful because of the wonderful supporters like both of you gentlemen. So I just want to take a minute to get both of your names out for everyone listening. We'll have James, you introduce yourself first, and then we'll have Luke go after that.
How are you doing? I'm James Hammond with Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated via the Eta Lambda chapter.
And my name is Brother Louis Bates Jr. I'm the 38th chapter president of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, the Eta Lambda chapter seated here in Atlanta, Georgia.
Good deal. And before we jump into the conversation, I had a teacher that used to say, when we were having conversations in class, she'd say, well, we're just gonna have like a popcorn conversation where we pop out whatever answer is based on the questions. And I know a lot of the time on Zoom, like we're having to do everything now, people might be worried about stumbling over each other or anything like that, but that's kind of the fun in the dynamics of the conversation. So
right.
That's how we'll do it, getting into the conversation about just your experience going through the poll worker program that the ACLU of Georgia has set up and implemented, and then your experience working the polls on the August 11th runoff. So what, I just want to know right off the top, what inspired you to become a poll worker?
Well, let me start with kind of a brief overview. Where Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated has been here in Metro Atlanta for over 100 years. So our chapter here, the Eta Lambda chapter, we just recently, May 20th, we celebrated our centennial, 100 years in Atlanta.
Wow.
And the fraternity has been around since December 4th, 1906 worldwide. And one of the current challenges in the missions that we're going through that the General President, Brother Dr. Everett Ward, has given us is Alpha Advocacy in Action. And that's exactly what we've done. There was a charge that was been given to us, all the local chapters throughout the country, throughout the world actually, to get involved a little bit more and step up in regards to voting, and precinct workers, voter education, registration, and then with that, this is definitely in line with an overall strategy to get involved with volunteering. And when information was given to us, and Brother James Hammond, I'll let him kind of take it from there, because he was able to spearhead some of his existing relationships throughout Metro Atlanta to say, hey, we've got a program that we can jump on board with, so we can get involved with becoming poll workers, working, if not one specific precinct, multiple precincts in time for the August 11th runoff. So that was something that went into play latter part of June, early part of July, and then we just ran with it. Brother Hammond ran with it and rallied the brothers around the chapter to get involved. And I'll let him talk about the successes that we've had.
Thanks, Brother Bates. And one of the things that really, really motivated me was I looked at what happened here in Atlanta on that June 9th election. I remember hearing about people complaining about, and also seeing on the news, people waiting in line for 4 or 5 hours. I heard a story of there was a law enforcement officer who was at a precinct. He was there for 5 hours and he needed to get to the front of the line because he needed to get ready to start his beat. And you know, the poll workers, they had to make some concessions for him because you needed to have the officer on the streets. And I said to myself, I can't let this happen again where people are waiting that long in line. Yeah. You know, I've always been a person that's always looked at it and said, if you're not a part of the solution, you're part of the problem. And I remember like that night of the election, I got on the phone with brother Chris Bruce, because the day after the election, we actually had our civil action task force meeting with our chapter. And we said, okay, what can we do to make this better? This is an effort that was actually started by brother Lou Bates. And we stepped out there and we began having the conversations. So when I began having the conversation with brother Bruce, he said, bruh, you understand, this is something I've been fighting for us to do for years. I've been going down to the Capitol, and, you know, we've got some legislation that we want to push through, but we need you to come work the polls. So I've decided to make sure that I brought other folks with me. I know that we had this effort, and initially, I'm not going to lie, I didn't expect to have that many people sign up. I expected 4 or 5, and we had 12 sign up. And, you know, we had a few challenges with the process because, you know, with any process, there's always going to be challenges. And we were able to have brothers at I believe 8 different precincts here in Atlanta. And it was an amazing experience. I look back and see that this was my first time working the polls, at least so I thought, until I spoke with my brother, who told me, no, you worked the polls when you were a little kid with your grandmother. And I remembered that yesterday. I was like, wow, I remember unscrewing the polls, the old polls, and setting it up. And I hadn't really thought about it since then, to see everything that we did. Like, I made a great post on my Facebook page and also on my Instagram page, and got a lot of likes on it, and it's actually encouraged a few other people to actually sign up to become poll workers. So it's amazing the reach that we had with this thing.
Yeah, and it sounds like it was a full circle moment for you, especially like having that memory of remembering you did this before with your grandmother. So
right.
That was a fantastic story, and gave me a little bit of everything I was wanting to ask moving forward. One thing that I wanted to note and then ask, though, was, and you mentioned it a little bit before, especially when celebrating the centennial of your chapter, but with notable, I mean absolutely notable members of both of you guys' organization that fought tirelessly for voter rights for years, into the major, and we're talking into the major movements of this country. So I'm wondering how the mission of your organization aligns with the work that you've done this past Tuesday with being on the front lines and defending our democracy, because we need all the defense we can get right now. So I'm just curious to know, like, how the two things aligned and intersected during the process for you.
I can touch on that first, and but Hammond, you can.
Of course.
Well, it works lock and step. A lot of people know many of the famous brothers here in Atlanta and throughout the world that have been actively involved within the fraternity. You've got, you know, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. We've got within the chapter, Brother Andrew Young. Rest in peace to Brother C.T. Vivian, who passed away a few weeks ago. So here in Atlanta, it has always been the core and within our DNA. It's pretty much an expectation we're going to be involved in civil action throughout. We've got programs, national programs that our chapter and other chapters do on a regular basis, but the aspects of voting and being involved in civil rights and civil action is an expectation. And that's one of the things that everyone, when they come to the chapter, when they hear about who we are and what we do, those are one of the things that just go lock and step with everything we've done. And so this was a great opportunity. And I think that it was a learning experience for many people, because many of the brothers, people just don't know, hey, who works the polls? How do you work the polls? And what do you have to do to sign up? And so, you know, with Brother Hammond leading the charge, we was like, hey, these are the steps that you need to take. We'll work with you, and they're going to help get us set up. Some of the challenges and some of the things that we learned from this was we have different brothers throughout the chapter that live in different jurisdictions. So some, like myself, live in Cobb, Others live in DeKalb County, which could be the city of Atlanta, but in DeKalb County, different roads.
That little 2-mile stretch.
Yep, that's right.
The weirdest line in the world.
And we had like 2 or 3 brothers. I can see Fulton County out my window, you know. But
right.
that we learned about, and it was great for us to get the momentum. And so the other thing is, as he mentioned earlier, as we started to post some of what we were doing just individually as brothers, those who were signing up, getting the poll worker training, others started asking questions outside of within the fraternity, other chapters, other just friends throughout the country was like, hey, I didn't know you could sign up as a poll worker. What do I have to do? My location. So that was a great thing. That momentum really took off.
Yeah, and the way I look at it is that I look at this as almost as an expansion of one of our national programs. The national program that comes to mind is a voteless people is a hopeless people. This is a program where we focus heavily on voter registration because we believe that you should vote in every election because we had so many of our ancestors and forefathers that came before us that passed away, that died for these rights to vote. And we believe that, that you should vote in every election. And honestly, if it takes us becoming a bigger piece of the process, then so be it. You've got to help everyone not only get to the polls, but also cast that vote.
Exactly. And I'm glad that, the work that ACLU of Georgia, and by the way, I need to mention when you're saying Brother Chris, for our listeners,
Brother
Christopher Bruce is our political director here at the ACLU of Georgia, to make that connection for everyone.
Yes. And Christopher Bruce is an amazing guy.
Yes, and it's an absolute pleasure to work with him. He was one of the very first people that I interviewed when we started up this podcast. So always a pleasure to work with Christopher as well.
I was happy to see, Chris and I, we go back about 10 years. Christopher Bruce and I go back about 10 years. And it was amazing to see the moves that he was making actually on election day, because he went, from what I was seeing, he went to about 10 or 11 polling precincts himself that day.
He was out and about.
Of course, on those days, he also snapped pictures with the brothers that were there at the precincts as well. So I'll make sure we get those photos to you. But he was really, really moving around that day.
And he managed to send a few to us of him out and about and checking in on the volunteers and everything. So absolutely. And again, I'm glad that, the work that we can do here at ACLU of Georgia empowers the work that your organization does when it comes to voter registration on a large scale and being a part of that national work. So another question that I had was, through whether it was the training process or actually being out and about or in just being involved in this poll working process, were there any surprises that you encountered or anything that made you go, I didn't realize that this was a part of the voting process? Now having a little bit of this back end knowledge, did you find?
Well, for me, I'd honestly like to say I didn't realize that working the polls was, honestly, that day would be as taxing as it is. I mean, you're basically looking at a 14, 15-hour day there, because you're there from 5:30 a.m. until about 8:30 p.m. And it's not that it's a grind. At least in the last election, it wasn't a grind. We know November it will be, because they're expecting 5 million voters in Georgia. Actually, no, 5 million in Atlanta, from what I last heard. So you've got that. You've got the fact that, honestly, the training, the training was very good. I went through the training with Fulton County back about 2 weeks ago, and it was a good training program. My training instructor, she did a fantastic job with us, and we were able to really get hands on. The things that I enjoyed were understanding the logic behind why they print out that piece of paper for you to go scan it, because it's a way for you. It gives another level of you really, really visualizing, is this what I really meant to do? Because sometimes when you're looking at the screen, you just tap, all right, I'm done. And when you look at it actually physically on paper, you may say, that's not exactly what I meant, because you have to physically feed it through.
Right.
I enjoyed learning the fact that learning all the different scenarios for how to vote. A lot of people didn't understand that you can't bring an absentee ballot to the polling location on election day, because they can't take that ballot at the polls.
Right.
A lot of people didn't all the different things that trigger for you to call to downtown to assist. I mean, for assistance. It was a lot, but also the other thing is to understand that there's a lot of really well-trained poll workers that are here.
Mm-hmm.
I know at my precinct at 11J at Continental Colony Elementary School here in Atlanta, I'd like to say that we had a great scenario you could think of. They were like, there was one time I got confused, and the young lady, Miss Brown, she was the assistant manager. Mm-hmm. She said to me, no, this is how you do it. And I was quickly educated as to how to mitigate certain situations. Also, the fact that honestly, working the polls, it's not rocket science. It's not a tough thing to do. If you can watch a movie on Netflix and you can find a good movie on Netflix, I guarantee you can work that iPad to check somebody in at a polling precinct. It was a good time. I had a really good time there, honestly.
And doing that, especially going into November, you've become a resource not only as a poll worker, but now to like help more people out in your community having that background knowledge, being like, okay, now that I know, I had somebody school me, like, this is how you do X, Y, and Z. So now when you go to the polling place in November, like, look out for this and look out for that. So
right.
It's excellent that it added value to you in that way. And then I feel like I've already gotten a good feel of like how the experience was for you personally and how enjoyable and valuable it was. So instead of asking this in question form, I'll say, do you have any comments about just the time that we're in right now, especially with mourning the loss, but celebrating the life of Congressman John Lewis, who was all about the vote and believed, as we all know, is the most important and powerful nonviolent tool. So how is being in these times, like how did it make you feel to be contributing to the work again on the front lines in that way?
It really made me feel good because, I keep referencing my Facebook post from the other day because I was really in my feelings I'm
gonna have to check it out.
during that day. I was really in my feelings because the one of the things I kept noting and reflecting on is we've marched for so many things. Mm-hmm. We've protested, folks have rioted, we've written so many policies. And in this day and age, a lot of people, there's a lot of unrest around policing, and also prosecutions of Black men, and prosecutions, and also the murder of Black men and Blacks in America. And to me, this was an election in Atlanta that if you didn't show up for, then you really needed to take a look in the mirror, because the offices that people were saying needed to change were the ones who were on the ballot. I mean, like, you had the Fulton County DA's race, you had the sheriff's race, and you had a judge all on the same ballot. Like, these were all things that you really that we really needed to actually really pay attention to.
Absolutely.
I know that our chapter, the Eta Lambda chapter, we took a very, very, very strong stance over the last couple of weeks regarding educating the community, because we interviewed James Woodall on last Monday.
Okay.
To have a good Instagram chat with him. So we interviewed him last Monday. We had a school board candidate who actually ended up winning the election do a chat with us via social media as well. We had a virtual voter registration forum for the next election. So we had that. And then we also hosted a voter pretty much a know your ballot / know your resources town hall discussion that was hosted by me and my co-chair, brother Mario Suffering. And all of these events, they're all things that I believe that were great educational tools and resources for the community. When I look at all the things that John Lewis and C.T. Vivian, all the things that they've done in their lives to fight for the rights that we have right now at this time, I think they'd look down and look at what we're doing and they would smile. because we're continuing the work that they marched for. We're continuing to take that baton that they carried for so long.
Exactly.
And I would echo that, not just them, the brothers that are in our chapter that were around during the civil rights era, some of them still communicate with me and others in the chapter, and they're so excited to see that we are actively involved in doing these things. One brother, he wasn't able to be on the call today. He shared an experience that 60 years ago, actually was a poll worker when he was in college. And they literally were counting the ballots by hand.
That's Brother Bob Jones, who we were trying to get on the call.
You know, and just hearing that story was just, it just touched me, right? And hearing some of the other stories of the brothers that were doing other initiatives, you know, at the different polls, that was great. And I also want to follow up on what Brother Hammond was talking about. In our chapter, another brother, Dr. Avery Kinley, really led our virtual voter education week last week, and Brother Hammond talked about 3 or 4 of the different initiatives that we had. We also had another one, which was a virtual panel discussion, which was the ballot box power of Gen Z. So we had college brothers that were on the phone, on the panel discussion, as well as recent high school graduates that were part of our mentee program. They recently graduated from high school, but they had been mentored from brothers in our chapter for the last 4 or 5 years that are now heading off to college. So we had to hear their perspective on it. So it kind of came full circle that we had our voter education week just a few days prior to this runoff election. So that momentum, that energy just really sparked a lot of good feelings as brothers got into Tuesday. We appreciate, you know, the hard work, Brother Hammond getting there 5:30, and a couple other brothers that had to open up the polls and getting there 5:30 in the morning and staying there all night long until the last ballots were counted and shipped and delivered to the elections office. And so we were extremely thankful for this opportunity. And I know that we've already set an aggressive goal to even come with more manpower as we get into the general election in November, and other activities that are going on between now and then.
Absolutely. And between your work and all the work that ACLU of Georgia is doing, I think that the momentum, we've set some beautiful momentum going, and I think we're going into November pretty strong and empowered to do the work that there is to do. And I know that your organization is the first.
Absolutely.
And so we want to know, would you encourage anyone else to do more of this poll work, the poll working program ahead of November? Because and now that you guys have the bragging rights of knowing that you're also the first big organization to come through and test out, and you know, now you're speaking and giving the testimony of the program. So would you be willing to encourage more members of your organizations, of the other D9, to get involved and express the importance of this kind of work?
Of course, we had a conversation about that last night. Like, we've got some things planned that we're not gonna pull out yet, but we're planning on engaging other members of the D9 that are in the Metro Atlanta area. Absolutely. But I'll leave that to Brother President to discuss further. But we've got plans.
Okay.
Hey, come on. We are encouraging, and we will be challenging, and we'll work through the details, because a little healthy competition to make the excitement at times allow the common goal, which is to make certain that everyone's voting experience is a wonderful one. And you know, we realized that the poll worker was one initiative, and there's other areas, as Brother Hammond had told me about, that there is a need within the elections, you know, whether it's call centers or whatever. There's areas that you can get involved with. So yes, we will be issuing a challenge, and to everyone.
Okay. We'll definitely be on the lookout for that. And I think that the next question is, would you do it again? Like, would you, ahead of November specifically, would you be interested in doing the poll working program again?
Yeah, I plan on working in the September 29th election.
Okay.
Yeah, I've already signed up for that, so I plan on being there. We like I've already got that date blocked out on my calendar. I'm dedicated to doing this on September the 29th for the seat to fill. I mean, for the person to fill John Lewis's seat for that
Right.
time period. So I'm already registered for that.
Gotcha. And we've talked. Did you have something to say, Lou? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to double down on what he said. Yes, we are absolutely going to be back involved again come general election, and as Brother Hammond said, for the seat for past Representative John Lewis. So yes, indeed, this looks to be something that we will continue to do, not just short term, but long term.
Good deal. And again, I'm glad that this is now a tool and resource for you to feel more empowered in the work that your organization does. And we've talked a lot about, just kind of things happening to make this experience feel full circle, whether it be, here working with one of your brothers that was counting ballots by hand and remembering that you're working with your grandmother, but even just in general with Congressman John Lewis, and now finding out Senator Kamala Harris has been picked to be the vice president. So the recognition and the opportunity to further highlight the work that the Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity is doing in the AK, the shine that it's getting, it just makes me so excited because it then also gives your organization opportunities to be continued on and to inspire even more generations who are seeing this history happen. While we have efforts like you here in Georgia with your local chapters contributing to that history. So I say all that to say, thanks again for all the work that you do. Let's remember in November that our democracy is what's on the ballot in November.
Yes.
And the Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity is on the front line, and we are protecting our sacred right to vote. That is the work that we are doing. So again, I just want to express on behalf of the ACLU of Georgia, my deepest appreciation for the work that you and other members of your organization have done.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And then was there anything else that you wanted to plug or add or?
Well, I just wanted to thank you guys for doing the work that you guys are doing. You guys have been on the front line. I've been on the front lines for quite some time. I've got quite a few friends that have been over there at ACLU of Georgia, and I appreciate the work that you guys do, all the lobbying that you do. I support many of the policies that you guys have worked on. This has been a great experience. I'm thankful that you guys are helping push us forward by working on things like getting groups and organizations to work the polls and to organize around these things, because we all understand that the Board of Elections, they have limited amounts of manpower, and they're going to need all of the help that they can get. And I'm just thankful for what it is that you guys are doing.
Absolutely. And remembering that even during we're still in the middle of a public health crisis, which led to a shortage of poll workers to begin with, because the main demographics of people who work the polls are a lot of times often older in age, who are also more susceptible to getting the virus that we're all having to deal with. So I say that to further display the importance of this work. But I saw Lou had something to say, and I don't want to cut you off. So
no, that's fine. I was just going to kind of wrap it up with, statements just saying that, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, Eta Lambda chapter is extremely happy to have been able to work with the ACLU to get many different brothers to have the opportunity to become poll workers, the real opportunity to get in the streets, really see the reactions from the citizens and the excitement that we've gotten from others. This is going to be a long-term initiative that we're going to continue to move forward with, and we're looking forward to continuing the relationship as time goes on.
Likewise. Well, gentlemen, I don't want to take up too much of your time and know that there's plenty of work to do. So I just want to thank you again for joining me for this very special episode, and we look forward to seeing the work. I'm going to check out that post.
Okay.
I'm going to check out that post, James,
of
on
course.
Facebook. And we look forward to seeing the work that you do coming up in the future and collaborating again moving forward. So thanks again.
Thank you.
All right, friends. that takes care of another episode. Many thanks for tuning in. It was a privilege to get to share a space of gratitude with James and Lou. As we head into the general election with the pandemic and demands of justice en masse from Georgians statewide, I look forward to having discussions and gaining invaluable insight right along with you here on this platform. To stay up to date on all the work we do here at ACLU of Georgia, visit acluga.org and follow us across social platforms at ACLU of GA. Also be sure to like, subscribe, rate, and review our podcast on whichever streaming platform you listen to us on. To find out more information on how you can apply to be a poll worker in your county ahead of the November 3rd election, visit acluga.org/pollworker. Like James said, if you can work an iPad for Netflix, you've got what it takes to defend our democracy. I'm your host, Kenyatta, reminding you to listen like your rights depend on it. Until next time.